Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And by this session, we invited several colleagues in Mongolia who specialized in specific thematic issues regarding transformative education, human rights education, as well as SDG 4.7. And through this dialogue, I would like to highlight what trend is ongoing in Mongolia and what transformational changes are occurring at the moment. So allow me to provide you some context while I'm delivering opportunity to panelists. So recently, Parliament of Mongolia adopted several laws regarding education, including primary and tertiary and vocational education and how it can be delivered to all. So within the newly adopted laws, the content, especially human rights education, gender education, peace, life skills, and crime prevention mentioned as a mandatory subjects to include all levels of education system. So allow me to start my first question from the Miss Namchimek. She's one of the young and emerging leader in the education field in the civil society, and she's committed to contribute, enhance the justice system into more restorative justice, and she's interested into the strengthening the juvenile justice. So my first question to Ms. Namchimig is, how do you see the need for human rights education for Mongolian youth? And would you elaborate on your personal experience as well as professional one? Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. And as well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. Just to give it a background, education and youth are both my passion. I've worked with adolescents in the past 10 years by supporting their self-development, guiding in their career prospects, providing them proper tools to stand still and firmly in the ever-changing life environment. After graduating from Kent State University with support from Fulbright Scholarship, I specialized in education psychology, specifically youth psychology. And within the past year, I have worked with 40 teenage mothers, both from urban and rural areas of Mongolia, from different backgrounds, and tried to provide the necessary adaptational skills that is mostly needed during the teenage years, transitional years, and as well as motherhood. Not only from this project, from other cases as well, in everyday lives, we see a big necessity for human rights education among Mongolian youth. So they can learn about human rights through human rights and for human rights. Young people should know how they're safeguarded, what our human rights values are, and how they can apply them in their daily lives and then defend it if necessary. And going back to the question of Bo, that how do I see the human rights education in Mongolia among you? Is there a need? Mongolia's youth aged 15 to 24 years old are roughly 460,000, which is 13% of our Mongolian population. Our constitution states and enshrined fundamental rights and set a goal of humane and civic society. However, human rights education program is not holistic or systematic yet. Colleagues at Alpha Education Coalition, National Human Rights Commission of Mongolia recently completed an independent analysis on textbooks and contents of high school civic education. Results showed a big gap how human rights and gender issues are applied in the textbooks and curriculums. I'm sure they will be happy to share more insights about the research as well. So human rights education in Mongolia currently are mostly provided through pilot programs, campaigns and promoting human rights issues, organizing events, organizing competitions and debates for youth and particular human rights issues. All of these are good initiatives, but these actions that I mentioned are mostly organized by international and internal CSOs and NGOs. So Mongolian education sector needs to have a holistic approach on the human rights education. Thank you.
Thank you, Namo. And allow me to introduce Miss Oyun. She's one of the experienced lecturer in the National University of Mongolia. And I would like to know more about her thoughts. How do you see correlation between peace education and human rights education as an academic representative? Over to you, Ms. Oyun. You should unmute.
Excuse me. Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much, Bo, for your introduction, and thank you, Namin Chimek, for your insights about human rights education in Mongolia. So I teach at the National University of Mongolia, and one of the courses I teach there is conflict resolution. So which is directly related to peace topics and peace and conflict. And excuse me. So in addition to my teaching, I've been also involved in Northeast Asia Peace Building Institute since 2010 as a steering committee member, and involved in non-formal peace education efforts there. So, and last summer, we just successfully conducted NARPI's Summer Peace Building Training, and Bo was one of the participants. So I think peace education and human rights education are interrelated, and also these are very important topics that we need to teach the youth, and not only the youth, the older people, because of current world situation, what is going on Ukraine and in other parts of the world. So human rights and peace education are both very necessary and very important for the people to learn. But unfortunately, peace education is not, how to say, we don't have formal peace education curriculum at our secondary schools, and also at university level, very few universities offer courses such as conflict resolution course that I teach. So we need to introduce more of these educational contents at our secondary school and universities. So just to be brief, without human rights, peace is nothing, and without peace, human rights are nothing. So we need to, how to say, need to have more discussion about these topics to make this world a better place, because in Mongolia we have lots of violence going on in our society, especially domestic violence, and school bullying is a very serious issue in Mongolia. So if we teach these children the core concepts of peace, inner peace, and non-violence, tolerance, the situation could have been changed for the better. So yeah, so at this stage, human rights education is more advanced in Mongolia, and we have many human rights friendly schools, etc. But peace education is kind of lagging behind. But recently we have founded Mongolia Peace Building Institute. So Bo is also elected as the executive director of that institute, and me as board chair. So through this institute, we want to also disseminate knowledge about peace and human rights. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, and allow me to highlight a few facts. For instance, in 2020, the Parliament of Mongolia adopted a long-term development strategy document, which is called Vision 2050. And in this document, if you see the chapter 5.5, then you will see or the long-term objective to create society that upholds human rights. So by strengthening civil society, private sector, and state partnership, the government of Mongolia is planning to establish an appropriate system for ensuring the participation of all relevant stakeholders in national policy development and its planning as well as implementation. And when we see the details of the phases and stages, how we need to uphold, then it says that from 2021 to 2030, one of the main objective to establish a national mechanism for the development, implementation, and monitoring of policy and legislation to ensure human rights and increase its effectiveness. So by 2050, the state of Mongolia is planning to foster a system that fully respects human rights in all social relations and foster a universal culture of human rights to guarantee everyone's rights and freedoms. So these are the objectives and goals in parallel with the sustainable development of sustainable development goals around the globe. And allow me to introduce Mr. Bhattachargal. He is one of pioneers in the education system and co-founder of the All for Education National Civil Society Coalition. And on behalf of our invited panelist, Ms. Tonglag, I would like to him ask to discuss about the content and more effective realization of the newly adopted education laws in Mongolia. So how do you see the newly adopted educational laws in terms of transforming the society as well as transforming the current education system. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. My name is Batjagal, and I'm originally a teacher, and I've been teaching for 6-7 years, and then I changed my direction. Instead of teaching, I turned into research and policy studies, and then I've been working in the civil society for 18 years now. So as Mr. Chair started in his opening remarks, we have just recently the Parliament of Mongolia recently adopted the new package of education laws, and then the process of adopting the law has been quite a long one for various different reasons, and it created, I think, both opportunities and some barriers in achieving the principles, the concepts that we wanted to have the law incorporated. But all in all, I think the new law should be praised. That the concept of lifelong learning, one, the concept of inclusion, and then the concept that education should be common good is more or less ensured through this law. So in terms of lifelong learning, the three different ways of learning is ensured: the formal, informal, and non-formal education is stated as different ways of learning. In order to ensure that what SDG 4.7 highlights, it will be quite important step to make sure that SDG 4.7 and overall SDG 4 concepts can be realized in our education system. So one of the ways that we should look into is how we know that in Mongolia, the formal education system is rather well established in terms of giving access to all learners, but we need to think about how human rights education, education for sustainability education, global citizenship education, all those concepts can be delivered or can be transferred through informal and non-formal ways. In other words, how we can harmonize the different pathways that people, children, young people can take in terms of their education and learning. Another important point I wanted to highlight is the new education law has a specific section on the involvement of civil society organizations. So I think this is an important leverage for us to be engaged in promoting, not only promoting, but also looking for ways to incorporate these important competences, skills, and content into education system through different ways that we use.
So thank you, Mr. Bachargal, and allow me to ask a next question to all three panelists. Recently, the government of Mongolia submitted their voluntary national report on the implementation of sustainable development goals. And according to the report and its content, there are several issues highlighted. One is about social justice and social inclusion and equality, including equity. So my next question to you all is how social justice, inclusion, and equality, as well as equity, can be promoted or lifted, in another word, realized in daily life of ordinary people. So how do you see the contribution of the human rights education and SDG 4.7's realization can help to change current status in Mongolia regarding social justice, inclusion, and equality? Over to you.
Could I start with this one, please? So my idea is one way could be restorative justice, which you have mentioned in your questions and related to Professor Yusuf's comments about peace building, conflict resolutions, because restorative justice is not applied in the practice in Mongolia. Just recently, Ministry of Justice and Home Affairs signed an MOU with the European Bank of Reconstruction and Development on a project to strengthen mediation in Mongolia, which I hope is becoming a starting point of mediation, restorative justice that can be applied in Mongolian context. In Asia region, South Korea is a very big player, has a good reputation in practices of restorative justice. They apply it in the neighborhood conflicts, school settings, the bullying that was mentioned as well, and even in the family courts. So this can also be practiced in Mongolia because restorative justice itself can also serve as a preventive measure for youth on minor conflicts, and can become a learning experience for many young people. UK and Canada are bigger appliers of restorative justice as well. So I believe the international practice can be modified for Mongolian setting and can make a very big impact on the social justice as well. Thank you.
Mr. Bachargal, would you mind to share your thoughts and insights?
Thank you. So I think with the adoption of the new law, we are also at a very crucial moment in the transformation of education, which is about reviewing the curriculum for pre-primary, primary, and secondary education. I think this process, how the process goes, has very important implication on how we can achieve SDG 4, not only SDG 4.7, but also in general, the education and learning opportunities for all. The current curriculum is, even though it is said to be competence or skills based, I think it needs to be further revised. We have to ensure that it is really a competence based curriculum. Currently, it is rather subject matter based or content based. So if we can ensure that it is really skills competence based, there are so many different ways that the ideas, the concepts like human rights, education for sustainable development, and other important topics that SDG 4.7 highlights can be incorporated. If we do it in a way that is now, then there will still be discussion about how we can incorporate. But if we change it so that it is real competence based, we can, there will be different ways to integrating the ideas, the concepts, the principles into the system from early age. It's not only about what is included in the curriculum, academic curriculum, but also, as we discussed, how we can incorporate through the hidden curriculum. So it's not about only teaching about human rights. It's about making sure that human rights and all these concepts live in the education system. For instance, if we organize the learning and activities so that children from early age, from kindergarten, preschool age, are involved in setting up classroom rules, in organizing the learning and development activities so that students engage in making their own choices in what kind of activities they do or how they learn about these. These will help children from younger age to exercise these rights and these concepts. So if we can ensure that both academic and non-academic activities, that is in the school, in the kindergartens, in the universities and colleges, then it would help us to not only teach about, but also help them exercise, live through it. So as few transformative scholars said, school is a model of democracy or democratic society. So if students, kids from young age do these, exercise these, live through this, it will help us to ensure that what we strive through SDG and SDG 4.7 can be realized in a more coherent and comprehensive way.
Thank you, Bacha, and allow me to move Ms. Soinsurn. Would you mind to share your own thoughts or insights?
Thank you very much. I agree what have my previous speaker said. I just want to add that within the human rights education, we need to teach more about human rights to our children, especially the rights they entitled by law. So not only children, many adults don't know their rights in Mongolia, and that's why their rights are being violated. every day, everywhere. And one of the problems of Mongolian society is laws are implemented selectively. So, I mean, not everybody is equal in front of law. There is no rule of law. Rule of law is very much in question in Mongolia. So how to fight with this and how to make our society better? It's to teach our children and youth about the rights that they have granted by the constitution, granted by the international pacts and conventions to which Mongolia is a party. So yeah, I have recently read the story of one elderly person, for example. Because that person hadn't reached the pension age, he had to wait a few years, and nobody told him about his right, that he is entitled to get welfare pension of 288,000 tugriks until he reaches the pension age. So it is very sad that even the government officials don't explain these rights to ordinary people. So he knew about it, only somebody else told about his rights, you know. So we have so many nice laws, but especially those in power and rich, famous people, they don't respect the law, and our courts and our judicial system is very much corrupt. So to change the situation, we need to teach our children more about their rights. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your insights and sharings. And now allow me to receive some questions, comments, or thoughts from participants in this session, about 10 to 15 minutes. If you have any question, please raise your hand and introduce yourself and ask your question or make your comments. Feel free. So while our participants are thinking the question or comments, so currently there is no hands. So as Ms. Oyunsur mentioned about that, there are some inequality, injustice, as well as discrimination in a society of Mongolia. Even government of Mongolia acknowledged that they not able to reach and include several social groups in society. For instance, the government of Mongolia adopted a new document, which is called United Nations Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework from 2023 to 2027. So this joint document signed by the UN agencies in Mongolia, as well as government cabinet members, it says that in order to implement the Sustainable Development Goals, we need to exercise principle of leaving no one behind. So from both sides, shared their findings and experiences, and they acknowledged that until 2027, the government of Mongolia, as well as UN agencies, should focus on 10 social groups, including children and adolescents, rural poor and herders, ethnic minorities, unemployed and unskilled youth, women and girls and vulnerable men, persons with disabilities, older persons, urban poor and internal migrants, sexual minorities, and victims of human trafficking. by highlighting these social groups, as well as by recognizing we not managed to include them in past years, at least the government and intergovernmental organization recognize it, how to allocate resources for coming next years. So my question for Ms. Domchimik, so my next question to you is mainly about the justice that you mentioned about it. And in Mongolia, how do you see the restorative justice and non-violence approach? Is it the alternative mean in parallel with the punitive justice system that Oyunsur'un lecturer mentioned that it may corrupt it, or it breeding the injustice? So how do you see it?
Thank you. Last time, a year ago, when I visited youth detention center, I saw roughly 25 to 30 young people there. And a month ago, when I met the psychologist, because I am a youth psychologist and very much interested in youth psychology, criminology, crime prevention. When I met the detention center psychologist, she said that they had 5 young women who have just recently been received in the center. So going through the statistics, it showed that most cases were sexual assault cases, which also shows lack of education, a lack of rights, lack of legal consequences. And it's very sad that without knowing during these transitional periods when the brain is not developed yet, when they are prone to risks, and then they don't have the basic roots for the risk analysis, that young people are here in the detention centers after making all these crimes, made me think that how could we, when they are in a small conflicts like bullying, well, not a small, but could be fixable conflicts, how would we prevent it, and then how should we work with them? And there comes the restorative justice. Forgive me if I'm making lots of examples from South Korea, but they are very good at applying the restorative justice, and the social issues are same as here and there. Because whenever a conflict occurs, it's never a or B party's issue, it's everybody's issue. So say there's a school fighting, it's never about boy A or boy B. It's about their classroom, it's about their teachers, it's about their parents, family background, even the community. So what they're trying to do is bringing all of those stakeholders together, and then let the offenders hear what their actions have made impact on their classmates' lives, on their family members' lives, on their communities, and let them realize that it has been their fault and that it should never occur again. So it should be applied very slowly, maybe as a practice in school settings, or where the community are more welcome to restorative justice. Because looking back at the South Korea cases, it took them 20 to 30 years of constant and non-stop campaigns and practices, and educating civil society, educating civic employees and NGOs and justice system itself. And only now, after 20 to 30 years, now they're applying it in family courts, they're applying neighborhood settings, there are groups that are specifically mediators, and then they're legally protected. So I know it's a very long road, but it could start small and then make impact from there, and then go from one setting to another, and then just expand slowly and steadily. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Naman Chimik, and allow me to check hands. So far, no hands. So allow me to continue my question. So my next question to Ms. Son Yoon is mostly following the answer of the Ms. Nam Chimik. Ms. Nam Chimik mentioned about the justice system, and in parallel with the current official justice system, I'm thinking about especially in order to fight against the culture of violence and culture of silence or culture of bystanding. I'm interested about that. Would you mind to share your thoughts on necessary framework for action and implementation for peace education in Mongolia in accordance with the non-violence approach to all? Over to you.
Thank you. What has Naman Chimik shared is very important to introduce this restorative justice practices into Mongolia. So that's one of the practical ways that we can implement, because restorative justice is also part of peace building, part of peace education. Yeah. So and other things that we should do is, I think, first of all, we need to review the existing curriculum of Mongolian secondary education through the lenses of human rights and peace education. So the curriculum pays a lot of attention and time to instill patriotism, nationalism, and traditional values, etc. These are all very important, but we need to also include human rights values and skills and values of also peace, non-violence, and tolerance in our school curriculum. So the first thing is maybe we need to conduct a review of our existing curriculum, because recently there was much debate on social media that in one of the secondary school courses there was a story about how to
His mother and stepmother.
Stepmother, yes. How to live better with your stepmother, or how to address better with your stepmother. But and people were very upset because the things they told there was very outdated and old fashioned. So these kind of things actually don't have place in 21st century education curriculum, but unfortunately we do have. And there is one problem with that because there is one reason behind that, because this textbook, how to say, authors, there are only a few people who wrote those textbooks and basically making money out of that without paying much attention to its contents and implications. So I heard even the term textbook mafia, because each year they change a few sentences, a few paragraphs, and then republish it and distribute to all the schools. Because, for example, if I publish a book, I will print it only in 300 copies, but these secondary school textbooks are published in thousands of copies. So yeah, Yeah, so that's what I wanted to say. That's
Thank you for inside news. So yes, as Mrs. Armstrong mentioned about the textbook content, recently, a few weeks ago, National Human Rights Commission of Mongolia, in cooperation with the All for Education National Coalition of National Civil Society Coalition of Mongolia, submitted report on content monitoring of textbooks in Mongolia, especially concerning on the citizenship education textbooks. So basically, literally, it says about the civil ethics in literal translation, and within the civil ethics content, according to their findings, you may find religious oriented discourse, religious norms, as well as traditional, more stereotype-based or more discrimination-based approaches already enshrined in illustration, as well as texts and content. So that was the main finding, and there are several discussions are ongoing so far, and first discussion was held between the academia as well as civil society organizations. So it's mainly about how to change our current textbooks into more human rights-based approach-oriented, gender mainstreaming, and non-violence approach to all. So I believe the monitoring the content of the textbook is one of the transformation in Mongolia as well. So my next question to Mr. Bachargal is, actually, he's one of the pioneering education expert in Mongolia, and he has a vast knowledge on education for many decades. So allow me to ask you two questions instead of one. So first one is, if I were your student and you were my teacher, how you can tell me the Mongolian transformational changes in education system in simple, plain language. For instance, we were teacher-based learning applied in the past, but now we are changing into student-based. So actually, we base it on subject-based content or delivery. Now we are more integrated interdisciplinary approaches starting to apply in the education system. So my first question is, what kind of transformational changes are occurring and where it is leading? First question. And second question is, if I remember correctly, you were in a working group to revise UNESCO 1974 recommendation, and it is mainly on human rights education and international understanding. So would you elaborate the work or your contribution in this revision? So this is my two questions for participants as well as to colleagues in Mongolia. Thank you.
Okay, so the first question is, I'm still thinking how to explain, because I can tell, maybe I can tell you what the civil society organizations in Mongolia would like the education look like. Maybe that might be an easier way to address your question. So as first of all, the education or the learning should enable you to, first of all, change your own life. But the life is not only about you. Because we live in a society, you should interact with the people around you, with the communities, and with the people within and beyond the territories or territorial boundaries. So you should be able to understand different contexts, communicate effectively with them, so that you live together happily in this world. So in order to do that, I think I heard from someone that an ideal student-centered learning is something that the learner decides on what to learn, when to learn, and how to learn. So if that happens, that is really a learner-centered. So the learner, let it be a young child, a student in a school or university, or adult, if you find out what you want to know and how you want to know and where you want to learn it, that is the transformation that we want, and that should help you to understand yourself, your community, your values, your beliefs, and how this can help you to relate with others and change not only your own life, but also the lives of your community and lives of the people, without forgetting about that you are not the only inhabitant in this world. So you have to think about what the nature, what the non-human belongings of this universe or this world. I think to put it in a simpler way, I think that is what we want. I can talk more, but I'll jump into the second question. The question, I was lucky to be in a group of internationally recognized experts in different areas of education to be part of the international expert group to revise so-called the 97 UNESCO recommendation. It is the recommendation adopted by UNESCO in 1974 about education for international understanding, cooperation and peace, and education relating to human rights and fundamental freedoms. So this recommendation was adopted in 1997, but since then, so many things have changed in education and in the world. So the decision was made that the recommendation was revised to incorporate the changes that happened, including the SDGs, including the UNESCO-led Futures of Education initiative, and all other things that are happening in education and around education. So the idea is to further develop the idea of peace and human rights education. So first of all, the name of the recommendation, title of the recommendation was expanded. It became a little bit more longer, but it goes like a recommendation on education for peace and human rights, international understanding, cooperation, fundamental freedoms, global citizenship, and sustainable development. So you have some idea of what this recommendation is about. So in this recommendation, it is a recommendation, first of all. It is not mandatory to all the member states to implement it, but I think it is a very good leverage for us to use how we can go about promoting the ideas that this recommendation recommends. So there are recommendations on how we can make adjustments, changes, transformations in terms of laws, policies, and strategies, what we can do in the area of governance, accountability, and partnership, how should the curriculum and pedagogy be so that these important concepts can be incorporated into the education system, into the classrooms especially, and not only in classrooms, but also in school life. How should assessment and evaluation be learning and teaching materials? What learning environments, not only within the learning settings, but also the cities, the communities can create environments for everyone to learn about these aspects, but also to live through these aspects. So I think this document is planned to be adopted this November by UNESCO General Assembly. So once this is adopted, we can use this as a way to looking into transforming our curriculum, also how we train teachers and what education and outside education settings can be. So this should be an important tool for us to use.
Thank you, Mr. Bacharov. And as a moderator, allow me to make a conclusion and wrap up this session. And as a matter of time, I would like to highlight several points. First one is a main objective of the human rights education and training is to contribute, establish the universally recognized culture of human rights, and whether there is a difference between nations or countries, all people shall contribute to creation of the universal culture of human rights, including Mongolia. And on papers, in accordance with the SDGs, we already adopted our long-term strategic document. On it, we can see various objectives and goals, sub-goals to realize every human rights and fundamental freedoms. And in order to deliver human rights education and training in Mongolia, we also changed its various package laws concerning education. And while we are doing this, we need to always consider leaving no one behind in accordance with the SDG principles. And I would like to extend my gratitude to esteemed invited guests, and thank you for your time and contribution as well as commitment. I wish you all the best and see you around the world. Thank you.